2, 1. Hey, welcome into the Stink Truth Podcast. Mark Schlerth live from Hawaii and Mike Evans live from Denver, which is exactly the way it should be.
Yeah.
Anyhow, however you're listening to us, man, we appreciate you. Thanks so much for being a part of the podcast. We really do appreciate all the listens, all the views, all the everything that happens. Mike, how are you, buddy?
Oh, great, Mark. I'm loving my
Yeah.
time here in Denver, where it's about 28 degrees. And by the weekend, it's supposed to be in the teens, single digits, below zero at night. So, yeah, glad you're having a great
Yeah.
time in Hawaii. Hey, is that a tsunami behind you? Oh, that
Yeah.
sucks.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's been kind of windy and rainy. So,
Oh, too bad.
yeah. So, I mean, you got to really bundle up and put on a long sleeve t-shirt, and longer shorts, those
Uh,
board type of shorts. Yeah.
okay,
So
good.
anyhow, it's been blustery. There's no question about it. How are you, buddy?
I'm great. I'm great. Looking forward to the season. Man, the season flew by, and now here we are with the playoffs. But before we get into the matchups and your thoughts on the matchups, we've seen some coaches fired, but are you surprised that we haven't seen as many fired to this
Yeah.
point?
Yeah. There was a couple of weeks ago where I thought there would be legit double digits, like
Yep.
10 guys that get fired. And there still could be a couple more coming down the pike, but it looks like Matt Eberflus is going to be safe now in Chicago. We all knew that Ron Rivera is going to get let go in Washington. Atlanta, up to a couple of weeks ago, Atlanta felt like Arthur Smith was going to be safe. And then, you can't close out the deal in Atlanta with arguably one of the best and the most complete rosters. Now, the quarterback is a question mark, one of the most complete rosters in football. And I think that's what frustrates most of the folks in Atlanta is that you have this great roster and you don't use it properly. You're trying to develop a quarterback and not truly using the roster. In my opinion, and I like Arthur Smith, but in my opinion, like use the roster, understand the shortcomings of the quarterback, and use the roster in a way that basically takes away featuring the quarterback, and eliminates that guy's responsibility toward the offense. You've got to eliminate him as much as possible and focus and put your focus and put your trust in other players. When you're talking about Algier and you're talking about Robinson and you're talking about Patterson at the running back position, you got Smith at the tight end position, Kyle Pitts at the tight end position, Drake London at the wide receiver position. I mean, you're talking about one of the most complete, one of the best rosters in football. And, arguably you can make an argument that one of the best, if not the top or right there next to the top offensive lines in football. And wasting like what feels to me like wasting that as you're trying to develop Des Ridder, and then you're taking him out and trying to put in Heineke. It just felt like they should be, and I've done so many of their games, they should have had 10, 11 wins. I don't think there's any question in my mind in that division, you should have had 10 or 11 wins. And the fact that you can't get that is the reason that Arthur Smith is no longer employed by the Atlanta Falcons.
You've done some Washington games this year. Whoever gets that Washington job, are they walking into something that's potentially attractive, or is the cupboard bare and you're talking about a major rebuild?
Yeah. So you've been so focused on building your football team outside the numbers. And there's a couple things that have happened. One, Sam Howell took a beating this year, and they were so excited about Sam Howell coming into the year. Well, really, I mean, I am sorry, but you operated that offense like Sam Howell was Patrick Mahomes, and he's not. And you have good running backs. You have an unbelievable. I could put Washington at the very top of the heap if you were going, who's the most talented wide receiver core if you go four deep in the National Football League with McLaurin and with Samuel, with Dotson, and with De'Ami Brown. They have got some talent. But when you look at their construction, their roster construction, all their tight ends are built essentially the same: 6'5", 250 pounds. None of them block. Not like so they don't have a mixture of guys that can do multiple things at the tight end position. Their offensive line obviously not very good, but the system with which they played under Eric Bieniemy did not allow them to be any good. So that's an issue. Defensively, you trade away your two best edge players. So I think defensively, I think they've got some issues on the edge. And that's where they got attacked. That's where San Francisco attacked them in the game I did. They're just not very good on the edge anymore since they got rid of Montez Sweat. They got rid of Chase Young, who certainly had his injury histories. Um, so I don't think it's bare, but I think you need to start building that team from the inside out. Now you have a ton of cap space, but I always wonder, Mike. I always wonder, like the next GM, whoever that is, are you sitting there going, "We got to go chase one of these quarterbacks that, frankly, probably isn't worth chasing." And so that's always this balancing act of what do you have to do, where do you go from here. I've heard so much about like Michael Penix,
Mm-hmm.
so much about how good Michael Penix is. I watched him in that national championship game. One, he throws the ball like Uncle Rico. Like I was like, does that look like an NFL? Doesn't look like an NFL quarterback. Now that may have been the outlier because I've seen him make some throws over the course of the college football season. I'm not sitting there analyzing or breaking down games, but watching that national championship game, I'm like, this is the guy that everybody gets excited about. This is the guy. I mean, and maybe I'm the crazy one, and he did get hurt, and maybe that affected it, but just from a mechanical standpoint, I'd be very concerned. Then you put the injury stuff on there.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy looked like a fourth round quarterback or a third round quarterback in that national championship game. It's going to get elevated to the first round. And I'm not trying to bag on Michael Penix. I just didn't see, oh my gosh, like a guy that drives the football and throws into tight. When I saw missed reads, I saw missed opportunities, I saw missed throws, and I saw a guy that flutter ducks the ball out there like I said, his arm slot's like right there. And me personally, and I'm sitting with my son, who when it comes to
Right.
mechanics of throwing, that kid could take your eye out from 60 yards with a rock. Like he just is like he can throw. He can just throw stuff, and he's going, oh man, I hate the mechanics of this guy's release and this that. And I don't know. I didn't mean to get off on a tangent with Michael Penix,
No,
but
I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did
yeah,
because you're talking about somebody who, for many teams going into that game Monday night, they were thinking, hey, this could be a top 5 quarterback. This is somebody like, for example, here in Denver, as they move on likely from Russell Wilson, the idea was, hey, the Broncos are saying at number 12, is this somebody you're going to have to trade up to get? That's how high his stock was going into that game. And it'll be curious to see because your opinion, your analysis of what went down Monday night is being said by a lot of people. His stock dropped. Question is, how much? We'll find out as we get closer to the draft. As you mentioned, Matt Eberflus in Chicago coming back.
yeah.
Is that a sign to you that they're going to continue on with Justin Fields and trade the number 1 pick?
Yeah, it feels that way. They've got so much draft capital right now. And then you look at just the way they're constructed, and they've got a couple of guys. They're gonna have to pay DJ Moore, who's an outstanding wide receiver. But they could trade back a little bit, go out and get a Marvin Harrison Jr., add that to DJ Moore. You went out and paid Montez Sweat. Like defensively, they're pretty damn good under Eberflus. And whatever they lack in talent, they make up for in scheme, hustle, effort. I mean, they are a strike you first defense. They tackle exceptionally well. I was impressed with Chicago on film when I ended up doing a couple of their games. So I think they're a really kind of underrated, undervalued team. And then when you start to look at, hey man, we've got this window, and maybe Fields is our guy going forward. And maybe it just is because you've seen the progression. Fields has grown and grown and grown throwing the football. Um, Now, his ability to run and his ability to scramble and his ability to run those quarterback design runs scares me a little bit because that dude takes some shots. I mean, he flat takes some big hits, which tends to make you a little bit nervous about the way he plays the game. But with that said, I think they may end up keeping him, and if they do that, the amount of not only draft capital they continue to
Mhm.
accumulate, but how the draft capital works for your salary cap. I mean, you think about if that, let's say they have in just pure draft capital, let's say the first 3 or 4 rounds, let's say they end up stockpiling and they've got a couple of first rounders this year, next year, they've got a couple of second rounders. Say you hit on 50% of those guys
Yeah.
and 50% of them become really good players. Let's say let's say in the next 2 years let's say you've got 8 guys in that first 3 rounds or so.
Mhm.
And I don't know what the numbers are, but let's just say that it's something of that nature. And you hit on 50% of those guys, you hit on 4 of them, become big time players. Well, now not only do you have some big time players at positions of interest to you, but on top of that, now all of a sudden you've got salary cap certainty because these guys are going to cost you what they're going to cost you. And the first rounders are going to cost you that for 5 years. Now, if they play, they play really well at the end of 3 years or whatever, you're going to renegotiate those deals. But you've created a window and you can play, you're going to have to pay Justin Fields, but are you going to pay him the top salary of quarterbacks? Or are you going to pay him that second tier? And that second tier is a very manageable tier for quarterbacks to come in about 25 to 35 million bucks, somewhere in there. It's a very manageable tier. So I could see them holding on to Justin Fields and just continuing to stockpile really good players that are highly drafted.
While we're talking about these coaches, you and I here as we talk, it's day number 3 and still no resolution when it comes to Bill Belichick in New England. Is this one of those things that the longer it goes on, the more likely he stays, or is what is happening right now simply the Patriots and Belichick maybe going out and assessing trade value, things like that?
Yeah, I think it's probably a matter of where Belichick is going to coach and the value that you create in a trade scenario for Belichick. Like, I think most people out there that follow this league feel like there may be some deal already in place with Vrabel. Like
Okay.
Vrabel didn't feel like a firing to me as much as it felt like a mutual parting of ways.
Like a release. Yeah,
You
go
know,
ahead. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, like just like Vrabel was like, "Hey, man, we know that this is the way it is, and I'm going to move on." But if you look at what Vrabel did, especially in the first few years of his coaching tenure, like he won football games on a consistent basis with what many would say is a second or third tier quarterback
Sure.
in Ryan Tannehill. And yeah, they had to pay him, but they didn't have to pay him top dollar. And they won a heck of a lot of football games with him, constructed the way that he wants to construct a team. And that is win from the inside out, build a bully as an offensive line, build a bully as a defensive line. And let's not overvalue wide receivers. Let's not overvalue, the passing game. Let's create a passing game that's built off our run game and let's do that. And that's kind of they're a little bit different scheme wise, but that's kind of the San Francisco philosophy. And one of the reasons San Francisco, is so damn good. Although one thing about that, and this is an interesting statistic, I don't know if you've seen this, but I think San Francisco is 0-38 under Kyle Shanahan when they 0-38 under Kyle Shanahan when they are down in the fourth quarter when
Huh?
they're down by a touchdown or more in the fourth quarter.
0-38.
0-38. They
Wow.
have they have not come back. I believe that's the statistic. You might want to check that out, but I know it's close. And which is, I was talking to Trey Wingo about this yesterday, and we were just having a discussion. He goes, "Why do you think that is?" And I go, "Well, because the way they are designed to run a system. They're designed to run the football, to run it well, to attack the edge of your defense with multiple different looks. Like San Francisco can beat you up on the edge. If you're a defensive end, for instance, your defensive end, you have to defend, let's call it the wide zone. Let's say, okay, we're going wide zone. So just keep track of this for me, would you? Just give me a check
Okay.
mark for each one
Sure.
I say.
Sure. Okay.
Okay. So now you have to develop, you go, okay, we're going to line up in just like strong right. And we're going to hit you with tackle tight end in a tray block off the edge. That's how we're going to beat the defensive end up to the second level. So that's one. Then we're going to line up in West with 2 tight ends, and we're going to use 2 tight ends to attack the end of the line of scrimmage. Okay, so that's a quad, right? We're going to do that. Now we're going to line up the same thing in a tight end and tackle, but now we're going to motion the back, the fullback out of the backfield. So we're in maybe weak right, and now we're going to motion him, and the tackle is going to move down, and the tight end and the fullback are going to double team the defensive end to the next level. Okay, now we're going to line up in the same thing, and the tight end is going to arc release and get width on the defensive end, and now the fullback is going to trap him. Okay, we can do the same thing, but now it's going to come from the opposite tight end, so he's going to come down the line of scrimmage, so it's going to change the angle. Now we're going to arc release. Now the tight end, the backup tight end, is going to trap him on the outside. Now, all of a sudden, we're on there, and the motion receiver is going to come down, and the tight end and the receiver are going to run a quad block to the second level. Oh, wait a minute. Now we're going to run our transportation series, and we're motion a tight end from outside in short motion. He's going to trap him on the outside in a crack, and the other tight end is going to loop around and take the next level. And I could go on and on and on. So think about what that does to a defensive end. Now your head's on a swivel. Who's going to freaking block me? We're running the same play.
Yeah.
All we've done is changed the entry point of 2 different guys, right? We're running the same play, but now we've blocked you 7 different ways. So now your head's on a swivel, and all of a sudden we get into a 3rd down and 4, and we throw the ball out of that. What happens? You're not even pass rushing. You're like, okay, where are they going to hit me from? Where's it coming from? And now all of a sudden you're 1,001. Oh, shoot, it's a pass. Now I'm going to restart my. Well, you're not getting there. You're not going to get there. But I say all that to say that's how they run the football, and they set up their play action stuff off of that. So they're not a team that gets into 3-by-1 formation spread and say, hey, man, just go win on a route. Just go beat your guy. That's not how they operate. And so I guess my theory is when they get behind, they still have to operate their offense.
Right.
And they create big plays through their run game and their play action, the way it connects. So that would be the reason for me on the outside looking in of why they're 0-38 when they're down in the 4th quarter under Kyle Shanahan.
Last thought on the coaches here before we get into the games. After watching the national championship on Monday and watching the Harbaugh family show and John and Jim, we got to get Jim back into the NFL. We got to have John and Jim back together in the NFL. It's too good, and mom and dad and all that stuff. It was fun to watch Monday night, and I think it's time for Jim to come back. Sorry, Michigan. I think it's time for Jim to come back to the pros.
I agree. I was so excited for the Harbaugh family, and I'm tight with John Harbaugh, so I was texting with John just after the championship game, just because it's really cool, man, and the fact that he's won a Super Bowl championship, and Jim is now a national champion in college, and they played against each other in the Super Bowl several years ago when Jim was the head coach of San Francisco. It's just a really, really cool thing. And so I'm with you, man. It feels like it's time. It feels like, to me, it's going to happen. And then you talk to a lot of people. I mean, the majority of everybody on that roster are seniors that are going to leave, right? So it was like you had this perfect storm of great players that you built up over the years. And I know that that's college football in general, but it feels like a great time to exit and move on. That's what it feels like. So good for Jim, good for the Harbaugh family. Really cool to watch.
Let's get into these games because it's Super Wild Card weekend. We get some really fun matchups with some terrific storylines. We've got Cleveland and Houston. Just a few weeks ago, these two teams played in Houston. No C.J. Stroud for Houston. That was the game where Amari Cooper went off, had like 265 yards receiving. We got the rematch just a few weeks later. Houston's coming in off a good win over Indy to clinch the division. How do you see this one?
I think this is one that I would look at and say, I think Cleveland is probably going to beat them down a little bit. Hey, man, it's been a great run in Houston. I think I think their head coach is going to be coach of the year. D'Amico Ryans, I think he's going to be the coach of the year. Obviously, CJ Stroud's probably going to be the rookie of the year or the offensive player rookie of the year, whatever those awards end up being. But I just felt like there was a little bit of I just felt like to me like they have so overachieved to this point that like their run, it's a great run. And even if it ends in Cleveland, man, it was a great run. Congratulations. I just think the way Cleveland has built their football team, you talk about a perfect storm, perfect storm situation for the Cleveland Browns to be able to go out and get Joe Flacco off the scrap heap and have him fit into an offense in which Kevin Stefanski is the head coach. Well, remember when Joe Flacco was really playing well, you know who was the offensive coordinator for John Harbaugh? Any clue? It was Kubiak. You know where Stefanski
Yeah.
started his coaching career? Under Kubiak, right? That's where he got his chops when Kubiak was in Minnesota. Stefanski was there. And so it's like this perfect storm offense that fits directly into what the Cleveland Browns do: run the football, attack the edges on the wide zone, use the play pass, use the boot keep game, and then the deep throws over the middle of the football field, whether it's a deep over, whether it's a deep in cutting route. I mean, one thing about Joe Flacco, he has got a hose, man. He can let it eat, and he loves those type of throws. So it's like this perfect storm offense that he falls into. And by the way, I saw somebody write this or talk about this on the internet, that the script writers, like Joe Flacco, the Watson deal
Yeah.
out of Houston to Cleveland. He's not playing. Houston comes to Cleveland. Joe Flacco replacing him. It just is like there couldn't be a better script for this weekend than that. I think Cleveland's gonna roll in this game.
Well, we have some storylines all over these wild card games. Tyreek Hill going back to Arrowhead. And
Mm-hmm.
I know that Kansas City has looked vulnerable all season long, and I probably should go into this game still thinking that way, but I don't know. It's Andy Reid, it's Patrick Mahomes, it's Travis Kelce, it's Arrowhead. It's going to be really cold. I guess I'm not willing to write off the old Chiefs until I guess it's painfully obvious.
Correct. You know me. I don't believe in the flip the script or flip the switch
Yep.
mentality, right? Um, but I happen to believe in it with Kansas City. I
Mhm.
think it's the best defense they've ever had going into the playoffs, and I think they'll find a way. The other thing is, does anybody truly believe in the Miami Dolphins? Does anybody like? The more they move on, and the more it's like, hey, we're this and we're that, and we're like, the more I just look at them like, oh, it's just the same old Miami Dolphins. And then you're going to go play in a cold Kansas City, and I just feel like they've only beaten one team with a 500 above record. They just, the way they finished the season, not being able to cash in, not being able to win close games. I just, I don't know. They just feel like they're fraudulent to me. And so, yeah, I like Kansas City. I know they haven't produced offensively like we're used to them producing, but I just have a feeling that this is what they've been waiting for, and I still feel like Kansas City is one of the most dangerous teams in the AFC.
Let's move ahead to Sunday's games. We'll just go in order as they're going to be played. And you got the Steelers and the Bills. The Bills are playing really good football right now. They end up clinching the division for the fourth straight year. And Pittsburgh, boy, maybe they're the exact opposite, right? Of a team like Miami, they have just overachieved all season long.
Mm.
But there's got to be a ceiling that they're gonna bump into, slam into. And boy, it feels like it's this week at in Orchard Park.
It really does. No TJ Watt. That's going to
Yeah.
be. I mean, that he's a problem. He's a guy that you break the huddle and you have to find out where he is, and then you have to have a plan on every single play how you're going to block the guy. And the relief that you get out of not having to do that is tremendous. The other thing, they've really done a great job. Joe Brady taking over as the offensive coordinator has done a great job of taking the hat off of Bills quarterback Josh Allen, where he was routinely in their 6-6 start throwing 40 plus times a game, where he has gone from throwing 40, 45 times down to 22, 24, 26, somewhere in that range. And they've run the ball much better. And he did throw a couple of picks and he turned the ball over, I think, 3 times last week in their win over Miami. Um, but still, he has been much better, much more judicious with the football. And that comes from not just Josh saying, okay, I'm going to make better decisions. That comes from better play calling, in my opinion. And so I think that's been a big feather in the cap of the Buffalo Bills. It's also helped their defense stay fresh, stay healthy, stay more time on the sideline, less time on the football field. So I think you can put a lot of credit or give a lot of credit to Joe Brady taking over that offense.
Packers, Cowboys, another terrific storyline. Mike McCarthy going up against his old team. I know when we started this podcast back at the beginning of the season, you talked about how you just can't trust Dallas. But at least for this week, can you trust the Cowboys?
Yeah, I feel like Dallas is a better football team. I think the one thing that scares me about the Dallas Cowboys is if they get behind. Like if you get a lead on the Dallas Cowboys, you eliminate their ability to do what they do best, and that's rush your quarterback. And so if you can do that, you take Micah Parsons and you eliminate some of his effectiveness off the edge. You eliminate some of DeMarcus Lawrence's effectiveness off the edge. Odighizuwa, some of the guys they have inside. That's really what they do exceptionally well. And so I really feel like if you can play, with a 7 to 10 point lead, you can really adversely affect their defense just the way they have to play it, because they want you to be in passing situations. They want you to be in 3 wides. They want to move Micah Parsons to one edge and let him rush the passer. I mean, this guy is I can't remember what the stat was, but he's like the first player since Reggie White or something to have start his career with 3 straight 12 sack seasons. Guy plays middle linebacker. Half the time he's playing middle linebacker. So, I mean, he doesn't even have the opportunity that most have to rush the passer. He's doing it from a limited opportunity, and he's still having that kind of an effect off the edge. If he was just an edge player, he may set the NFL sack record. So it's just amazing. He's an amazing performer. But, yeah, I just feel like Dallas at this point is a better football team all the way around, top to bottom.
In a wild card weekend full of storylines, the best one, the juiciest one, Matt Stafford going back to Detroit to play the Lions. Jared Goff playing against his old team, his old coach in the Rams and Sean McVay. You just got done calling the Rams. So how do you feel about this this awesome storyline filled showdown?
Well, I tell you what, the script writers of the NFL, every great storyline is represented here in Wild Card Weekend. How do they do it? How do they do it?
It's a script. It's scripted. It's scripted.
It does feel that way, doesn't it? I'm with you. I think this is great. The storylines here are great. Matthew Stafford going back to the team that drafted him. Jared Goff playing against the team that basically kicked him to the curb and said, "We don't think you're good enough." I mean, it is awesome. Talked to Sean McVay before the weekend, like before they played San Francisco and they're trying to get the 6th seed or the 7th seed. They really didn't care. But we talked to him and just asked him, "Hey man, what have you thought about the return going to Detroit if it happens to work out that way?" And this is and I quote, "Does a bear shit in the woods?" Like, of course we've thought about it, right? I'm going to tell you right now that the way the Los Angeles Rams are constructed, they've got one of the best defensive players ever play the game in Aaron Donald. But then after that, Mike, they've got a bunch of rising players. Byron Young can really play. A kid by the name of Kobe Turner plays kind of nose guard for them. Is a really good, smart player, really effective player, plays exceptionally hard. Michael Hoyt, good player off the edge. He's developed into a really good player. Ernest Jones, really good player at the middle linebacker position. Quentin Lake, the son of Carnell Lake, all
Mm-hmm.
pro Pittsburgh Steelers safety. Jackson, I think he played in Jacksonville as well. But Carnell Lake, the Quentin, a really good player, plays the nickel position. They got some really good young rising talent on their defenses. Their defense is good enough. Their offense is playing at a Super Bowl level. This is the best offense they have had. This is the best run game they've had since they went to Super Bowls. This is the best run offense they've had since Todd Gurley was cutting up the league.
Mm.
They have really, they went back and assessed themselves in their kind of quote unquote rebuild, and they attacked offensive line and run game. And they did it exceptionally well. And then they do it. We talked about San Francisco, and we'll do this a little bit in the leftovers podcast of the game I had last week, San Francisco and LA. But the way they attack the edge, where San Francisco does it out of two tights or two backs and all that, the LA Rams do it out of wide receivers, 11 personnel. San Francisco led the league in two back personnel plays. 49.5% of the time, they're in two back. You know how many times the LA Rams are in two back? 0. 3 wides the whole set. And it's the exact same offense. They just do it out of different personnel. So it's kind of cool to watch, but we'll discuss that later. They're playing at a Super Bowl level. They're running the heck out of the football. Matthew Stafford's playing at a real high level. Their receivers, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, even Demarcus Robinson, they're really playing well right now as an offense. So they're a team, and Kyle Shanahan told me this, they're a team that nobody wants to face in the playoffs.
Which quarterback in this one do you think has the potential to play tighter? Stafford in his return home, or Goff going up against the coach and the team that discarded him?
Yeah, I think it's Goff. I think Matthew Stafford has has that ability to give no shits or no Fs. I think
Yeah.
he operates that way. I think Jared Goff, as good as Jared Goff has been, and he's been a top level performer for Detroit. I just feel like there's a little bit more to prove there. I mean, come on, Matthew Stafford left Detroit, a guy that I told you forever was, a Hall of Fame quarterback. It's what Kyle Shanahan called him, a Hall of Fame quarterback. He's that good. Went to the Rams and won a world championship. And so, obviously, acquitted himself quite nicely, winning that world championship. And all the people that thought it was Matthew Stafford, then they all had to look back and go, no, it's the organization. Well, they've got a great organization now under Dan Campbell, but I still feel like Jared Goff's got a little bit more to prove.
Last game, Philadelphia and Tampa. Man, just a few weeks ago, the Eagles are 10-1. They've been in free fall. They've lost 5 of their last 6.
Yeah.
And now you're hearing conversations, Mark, where Nick Sirianni's coaching for his job on Monday.
Right.
What the hell has happened here? And can they reverse this tumultuous streak? Can they change their fortunes in time?
It's a great question. And obviously Tampa is they're no great shakes, right? They went into Carolina with the division on the line, a game they had to have, and they won 9-0. And oh, by the way, Carolina had a touchdown called back in that game as well. Yep. So I don't have a lot of faith. It's not that I have faith in Philly, because I don't, but I have less in Tampa. So I think Philadelphia will figure out a way, a formula to play a little bit better, to run the ball a little bit better, to set up their play action a little bit better, and to get themselves on a win streak here. But, part of the complementary nature, think about last year, they led the league with over 70 sacks. And this year, they just haven't been the same. But a lot of that is because they haven't been able to possess the ball. They haven't kept drives together. They just have not played very complementary from a football standpoint, from an offense to defense to special team standpoint. So, but this one is hard for me, because I think they're both fairly suspect. I think both teams are a little bit suspect. but I'm going to go with Philadelphia based on pedigree, based on I think they're a better roster, especially on the offensive side of the ball, and we'll see what happens.
All right, should be a great weekend. Buckle up, everybody. It's one of the best weekends in all of sports, so have fun.
Yeah. By the way,
yes, bring it on.
we do need to make. You were 25-20 in our pick sure to go wrong. I was 27. Oh no, excuse me. The final tally. You were 27-21. I was 28-19-1. So commanding two better in the loss column than you.
Yeah.
So, but we
Congratulations.
Thank you. Do you want to pick real quick?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
You want to do all the games? Let's do it.
Okay, go. I'll let you start.
All right, I'm going to take Cleveland.
-2.5.
-2.5.
-2.5.
I'm going to take the Chiefs -4.
Okay.
I'm going to take Buffalo -10.
-10.
I'm going to go Dallas -7.5. I'm going way too many favorites here. I'll take the Rams +3. And I'll take Philadelphia -3.
-3. All right. So, all right. I got to just take some different than you, just because I like the Rams. All right. I'll go Tampa. These will be my different ones. I'll go Tampa. I'll go Pittsburgh +10. And I will go Green Bay +7.5.
Okay. Good luck.
So those will be those are only 3 difference.
All right.
And
Sounds good.
I just took them because I want to make it sporting.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Appreciate that.
All right, but I won the world championship, so that feels good. It feels good to be a champion. Again, just add it to the rest of my championships, but you can take home the yellow ribbon. So good for you. You used the yellow ribbons in your house.
Well, you won the regular season. Yay, congratulations. And like last year, you won the regular season. I won the playoffs. You drive for show, I putt for dough. Okay?
Well, wait, I mean, the fact that I just let you, after you lost, pick first, and then I just had to go against you to make something different, shows to you just my superiority and my in when it comes to picking. Anyhow, hey, for everybody involved in the Stink Truth podcast, we got to roll. Make sure you stay tuned for down the road here for the leftovers between my game in LA or in San Francisco, between the LA Rams and the San Francisco 49ers. Got a lot of stuff to tell you about. We did a big one, got a lot of views on San Francisco. So let's focus on that one a little bit more on the LA side of things. All right, for everybody involved in the Stink Truth podcast, man, we appreciate you. We will talk to you down the road.